this is Catherine, this is... I gave you next because it came out of white.
This is not me.
Oh, I did give the wrong one. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, whoever the other one is, get it to him. All right.
Very nice.
So, is that Luigi's?
That's hers and this is mine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did everybody get one?
Sorry.
All right. All right. Now, here's the thing. You know, you've been through 5 weeks. You have no idea how much you know because you haven't put it to work. I ask you to start doing charts. All your friends, everybody you know, your family members, everything. Start doing their charts. Put them up and start looking at them, studying them. Look at the factors I told you to look at here. I taught you I've given you a lot, quite frankly. You don't know how much you know. I remember when I went through the military, I went through electronic training. It was I think it was a 16-week course. They said you're going to have the equivalent of a college education when you finish this course in 16 weeks. Intensive. And the instructor said, but we know you're going to maintain and retain, if you're lucky, 20% of what we teach you. But if you retain 20%, you'll be good at what you get into. Okay? So it's kind of true for this. A lot of it's overload. I've poured it on you guys. I've given you a lot.
Yeah.
Hopefully I've given you my spirit of this and not just the words of it, the knowledge of it, the mechanics of it. To me, that's not what it's about. It's the dynamics of it that matters. And if you can bring dynamics into your reading and into your heart, into what you're doing and love it, you'll become amazingly accurate and become very well known in your field. And you're recommended by the last chart you did. As long as you're doing charts, you're going to be doing, you know, have people coming to you. People will seek you out. You know, I did a party a month ago. I got another party lined up already. And I'll have another party from that party because I know that the people will get the value when they come to those groups. So what I'm saying to you is start doing this stuff. It's like I told you before, I can teach you all the rules of swimming. But unless you jump in the water and start swimming, you're never going to learn to swim. And same with astrology. And I also recommend you teach as you get going. Teaching is the best way to learn. You have to be on top of it or you wouldn't be, you know, you're up front and you're doing a teaching job. People know, you know, if they have a question, you've got to have the answer. Or if you don't, you say, I don't know, but I'll get back to you next week. And you look it up, right? So the bottom line is that I want you to get actively involved in this. It's a passion for me, obviously, you know that. It's kept me entertained. It's kept me really, it's brought me my wife, you know, actually two, but it's brought me my wife. It's brought me so much love in my life. It's brought me associations, friends. Astrology is amazing. It brought me a career. I used to do radio astrology for years. I was on the air reading charts. People call in, give me their birth time, and I put them in a computer and read them. And I did that for years in San Diego and Los Angeles and San Francisco. I had daily shows in those cities. And so there's many opportunities. The more opportunities you take, the better you're going to get at it. And the better you're going to be at it, okay, quite frankly. And so, you know, part of it is developing your spiritual eye. Somebody said to me the other day, I'm spiritual. I said, and I got offended she got upset because I said bullshit. I said, you know, there's a scripture that says them that say they are more holy than thou are like smoke in the nostrils of the Most High. There's nothing more ugly and egotistical than I'm spiritual. You know, you may be on a spiritual path. You may be on a spiritual path. Okay, but you know, your goodness is by grace, not by your work. And I did this, and I made myself into a spiritual person. You're only spiritual by grace. You're only saved by grace if you put fundamental terms. You know what I mean? So it's not by your worth. It's not because you're not worth it. It's because it's all been paid for. So that's how I look at life. Okay. The purpose for me for astrology is no different than it was 2,000 years ago. And you know what that was, the purpose? It was the three wise men were astrologers. You knew that, right? They were astrologers. They know it now. They know. They translate it right correctly today. The three astrologers were here for only one purpose, and that was to lead us to the cradle of the divine being, or to lead us to the cradle of Christ. I feel astrology, ultimately, that's its goal. If it does that, it's a perfect thing. When I see a reverend teaching, working with astrology, I'm happy, because she's one that can do that. She's qualified. She knows her Bible. She knows the truth. She knows the metaphysical side of things. Okay, the metaphysical church. So what I'm saying to you is that the astrology for me is still the same as it was 2,000 years ago. It's here to lead you to the cradle of your own divinity, to the divine in you, and to see who you are, and to walk in the light of that. Okay, that's what it's really about. So when we talk astrology, you've got to learn the shorthand first. If you don't know those words, those symbols, all the meanings, you should be able to look at a chart, instantly know what Cancer looks like, Leo looks like, what Sagittarius looks like. You should know that. You should know all the symbols of the planets. That's your homework. That's something. I don't give homework. I'm not Saturn. I'm not structured. I don't tell you what to do. In the spirit of it, I hope you'll do it. In the spirit of what? Learning and knowledge and understanding. Not in the spirit of Ron said I have to do this by next week. I'm going to give you the test. I'm not a tester. I'm not Saturn. He tests. I'm Zeus. I'm here to bring you light and love and hopefully touch your hearts in some ways and your souls to inspire you to do something. Not because I say you have to do this before next class. You understand? So this is our last class. We've had 5 wonderful sessions. It's amazing the people that come together and the people that don't stay. To me, it's all meant to be. You know what I mean? It's like it's all designed that way. And the right people are in the right place at the right time. And those that shouldn't have been here have left. Okay? Only 2 people out of the group left. And I don't mean that derogatorily. Okay? I mean, they have their own path to go. But you've all stayed with us. And you've all made great strides, I know. And I don't think you know how much you know yet until you start doing it. So what I want to do for the last time we have here is, what time is it? 5:30, so we've got a half an hour. I really just want to, if you have any questions, I want to address those and spend a little time on personal questions. If it's about your own chart, it's fine, okay. I don't want to do complete readings. I do readings, you know that, for a living. That's what I do. If you want a full astrological reading, I'll do that for you, but that's something I'll charge you for as well. But if you're here to ask about your own chart, it's a question about it, I'll answer that, of course, you know that. Also, if you have any general questions about astrology, specific to anything, if I don't know the answer, I'll surely tell you that too. I don't ascribe to a lot of what astrologers ascribe to, and I don't tell you what to do as an astrologer. If you think this works for you, use it. I say whatever works, do it. But for me, I know what works for me, so I'll share that with you. And I know that in years of working in astrology, I actually accidentally happened on the technique. For many years, doing radio astrology, on-the-air readings, I used to have, I'd say 98%, 95%, the worst I would have accuracy. And there was always a little area there that was just a little bit concerned to me. What I discovered was, when I was teaching in Massachusetts, I uncovered why, the missing link. And that was the third thing that I put into my predictive techniques. And that is the transit Saturn, which I used to see Saturn in people's charts. As astrologers, you hear people say, oh, I got Saturn doing this and that in my chart. It's going through my first house, and I know it's doing this, and nothing would ever happen. But their fears would be there. Their fears. And what I began to realize was, why is it that Saturn sometimes seems to hit them hard, and other times it just doesn't do anything? And what I discovered was, it's based on a scripture. It says, except there be 2 or 3 witnesses to establish something in law, we're dealing with laws here, then it can't be established. You may infer it will happen. You may suggest it might happen with 1 or 2 witnesses, but don't make it a prophecy. I make it a prophecy when I say 3 things are happening. When I see the progress moon, the 28-year cycle progress moon, the transit Saturn, when I see its 28-year cycle, it's Mr. Timepiece. Father Time, Saturn, he's the timepiece. Okay? And then I see the new moons, which are a shadow of things to come, Scripture says. I see those 3 things ganging up on an aspect in a chart. I know something's going to happen. And I'll predict it very accurately, and I know. And I will tell a client, you know, this is definitely going to be, you know. Then other times I say, I think this is going to be, because there's 2 witnesses. Or there's 1, and I'm not certain. Okay? So you're going to learn as you work with prophecy and you're working with people. And there's more than just the mechanics too. There's the dynamics of your spirit and your soul and who you are, and how much light you bring to a subject. Okay, and what I mean by that, you know, when I think of, you know, it's really how much love you have.
Bottom line.
Mm-hmm. And that's the key of it all. Everything else is, you know, it says, there's a scripture that says, where there's prophecies, they'll fail. Where there, you know the scripture? Where there's, all these things are going to fail. But where there's love, it never fails. You remember that scripture? Like you can have, you know, all these things, prophets and prophecies and everything. All of that can fail, but one thing will never fail is love. And if you really are a loving person and you're walking in that light of truth, because several things happen when you're walking in light or love. You notice God is described as light, love, okay, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. He is all, everything. He's everything. But what does that mean if God's within you? It means that if you're really walking in love, you're going to see better, first of all. You're going to have vision that's greater than what you have in your limited state of mind, in your limited consciousness. Let me say it that way. When you're dwelling in love, guess what happens? Your eyes dilate. Did you know that? Did you know your eyes dilate when you're walking in love? Did you know that when you look at a beautiful lady, that your eyes dilate? Did you know that? It opens them up. It makes them dilate. Did you know that when you look and see out here nothing but bad, and you're seeing all the negatives, your eyes are doing this, they're closing down. That's what the early Christians talked about when they said, if thine eye be single, the whole body would be full of light. That would be a totally dilated eye. Okay? Nobody has an inkling. They have all these theories out here about, oh, it's a third eye. I'm not saying, we all have a pineal gland. I'm not suggesting it's not important, but it's not what it's talking about. You know? It said, you know, oh my God, there's so many scriptures. Start looking at scriptures about eyes. It'll blow you away, because all of a sudden it'll make it so clear to you. Because if you're dwelling in light, your eyes are dilated. If you're walking in darkness, your eyes are pinpointed. I told you I spent 9 years of my life in prison. I could see in a person's eyes how deadly they were, how dangerous they were, just by looking in their eyes. I told you, I think the last lesson, I had a beautiful daughter. I have a beautiful daughter. She was Miss Orange County, beautiful girl. And as she was growing up, I always told her, I said, if a man tells you he loves you and his eyes are pinpointed, beware. And Elena will tell you, I've met people, they're the most, outside they're the most beautiful. They seem to have everything. They seem to be the most loving, compassionate being. And I'll say there's no light in their eyes. There's absolutely no light. And later Elena will come back and say, now, you know, I see it now. I never could, you know, that person seemed to be just everything, you know. But now I see it, you know. By their actions, you begin to see that there's not really light. There's the words, the actions appear to be perfect, but yet there's no true light. There's no true compassion. So when you're walking around and you're looking in people's eyes, you know, you can judge them, but don't judge them harsh in terms of judgment, because there's an interesting scripture that says that if you judge the beam that's in your brother's eye, be careful about your own. Because when you get in a state of judgment, you become the judge. Now you become the accusing spirit. You see what I'm saying? You use it for knowledge and for protection, especially as a woman. If you're around somebody, you know, you can pick up a lot. But don't use it to start going, oh, well, you know, she doesn't have any light in her eyes, you know, and I'm, you know, becoming very negative with it. It's not about that. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to be light bearers. I want you to be lovers of humanity, but first to be lovers of others, you have to be lovers of yourself. That doesn't mean you're ignorant of what goes on in the world. That doesn't mean there aren't evil things out here. You know, there are. The world's a dangerous place. You know, surely we have to be wise as a serpent, but don't be a serpent. You know what I mean? That's scripture. Be as wise as a serpent, don't be. So, when you're doing charts, you're going to see a lot of things that are going to really open up a world of understanding about that person. If you're in a relationship with a person, the biggest mistake you can make is not know the chart of that person. I talked to you about that in this group before, about students we had in classes that thought they found the love of their life one week, and the next 3 weeks they're being, you know, they're being pursued by a demon, you know. And all I had to do was look at the chart. They could have done that, and we did it in the class and said, "Oh my God," you know. But the point I'm getting at is that it's not about looking to find a way to judge others. It's about being aware. Being aware. If you know somebody is really very strong Mars, Saturn afflictions in their chart, they can be very controlling people. Okay. But at the same time, you got to remember, love forgives what? A multitude of what? Sins. Okay? A person that's really in love with another person may not manifest those negative qualities so much. They may have them and they may tend towards them. But they can live around them. You understand what I'm getting at? Because they have love, a lot of love. Okay? That's right. Like kidding. Don't like cats. So what we're talking about is walking in love, walking in light, being the light, and starting to walk in a way where you're working as a counselor to other people, and learning the art of interpretation. Now, did anybody have any questions in this one? Yes?
Okay, a couple questions. Do you know anything about the geographical projections of the planets?
Oh, like living where you should live?
Yeah.
You know, I've looked at it a little bit. I've got programs that can do that. I have noted that when Saturn and Mars and certain energies are on the longitudinal line of where I'm living, I have a lot of problems.
Mars and Saturn?
Yeah, you know, if they're sitting right on that latitude, longitude, right. So, yeah, I think there's something to that, okay? I think there is probably some places are better for us to live than others. I know I should be close to water. I've always known that. It's something that's good for me. I'd say for her, I think. But you know, there's a lot of things that speak to that. There's a particular kind of astrology that does that. You know that, right?
What's it called?
Oh gosh, what is it called?
Relocation?
Huh?
Relocation chart?
No, it's I know what it is. I just can't remember. That's not
Mundane?
No, it's no, it's developed as a way to check your different parts of the world where you might be, you might do well or be happiest.
It's not synastry, is it?
No,
Yeah, there's a girl at church wants me to do that, and I don't have a program.
I have the program and I should know the name of it, but if I get on the computer, I can figure it all out. But let's not do that right now. I'm sorry, I have completely on that one. And what was the second question?
I have three. But
Three,
another
good.
one
I like
is,
that.
do you have, what significance do you hold to degrees?
In what respect do you mean?
Like anything to do with numerology?
Oh, no,
like
or
that?
Sabian symbols? No. You know, I've played with all that. You know, I mean, they're very obscure little sayings that go with every degree of a sign. You can look them up, and
Okay.
I don't put a lot of stock in a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff, you know?
I can't even understand it.
No, they don't make any sense. They make sense if you want to put a meaning on. You know what I mean? If you want to, oh, I think I know what that means.
Well, I did look up one for Elvis, and it's someone who like used scarves. And I thought, oh,
It did say that?
That fit,
That
but
fit.
other stuff on
Yeah.
Random.
It's
Yeah.
not
The book is
accurate.
like that.
Yeah.
I read it, it's not accurate.
Yeah. The main thing is to keep it simple. Let me tell you this. I've gone the path, I've studied different techniques, the Evertine system, which is the German system, midpoints. You can put everything in a chart that's imaginable. Solstice points. There's pars of fortune, pars of death, pars of marriage, pars of this. It's all a mathematical computation, taking this planet, subtract that, and put it to your ascendant, and you know, it's a bunch of, I've done it all. I spent years in prison, had nothing better to do. I had a lot of time.
Right.
Had a lot of time, 9 years. And I did all this stuff. I sat in my cell trying to calculate all this stuff. Most of it just waste of time. Because if you get right down to it, do what the ancients do. You know, they work. I don't even deal with asteroids. I know I don't tell you not to. You know, Ceres, you talk about asteroids there. You know,
Chiron?
yeah, Chiron. Yeah.
Alice.
Why don't you use all of them? Hundreds and thousands of asteroid belts out there. Pick any of them. You know what I mean? Sure, they're big, so they draw more attention. But the point is that I don't particularly use them. I don't say not to. I don't tell anybody what to do in astrology, but I tell you what works for me. If it works for you, fine. You don't use them. So going back to interpretation, stay with the 9 planetary influences. Sun and moon we call planetary influence, but stay with those. You've got millions of combinations between signs, houses, aspects, and planets that you can calculate literally hundreds of thousands of ideas and concepts through that conglomeration of everything. And the art of astrology is to be able to bring it all together. Okay? Come on, Zeus. Come on over here. Lay down. Down. I got it. Lay down. I said lay down. Hey, you're not listening. Lay down. Good. That's good. I will when I get around to it. Okay. So stay with the basics, okay? Believe me, you're going to get so befuddled if you start putting all these other things in a chart. You're going to get so confused. I don't even use North and South Node that much. Sometimes I look at them, but everybody puts a meaning on it. Saturn and Jupiter meaning, because, you know, I don't pay much attention to that either. So just stay with the planets. You'll have plenty to interpret just on that level. Any other questions? Anything about your chart you're curious about, or so time to ask, you know?
If your ascendant's in like a grand trine, is that equal to like a planet?
Yes, it's good. If it's a grand trine to planets.
Would you read it like you would a planet? You know.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Let me, because the ascendant point is treated like as a major significant influence in your life because it's the IM of your chart, the first house. So let's kind of look at that. I'll show you. All right. Almost. All right. This is the first house right here. It's where the sun rises in the east, right at this point. And this is your ascendant or your rising sign. It can be called anything, either one of those two things. And the most significant thing about this ascendant is what sign is on that ascending house. And from that, you're going to get a great amount of information about who you are, the I am of your being. And that is because you're going to go find the ruler of that sign. And where it's deposited in that chart will give you a stronger message about what your destiny is. Because your destiny, like for example, I just can use my own chart. I know what it is. I got Sagittarius rising. I've got my sun in my 12th house here, along with Mercury, in Sagittarius, of course. So I'm a double Sagittarian, okay? Some of you have the same sign rising and the same sun sign. It's called a double this. I'm a double Sagittarian, a double Capricorn, or whatever it might be. All right? Now, the significance of this ascendant is to find its ruler. My Jupiter sits down here in Pisces, in my 3rd house. Well, guess what the 3rd house rules? I want to know my destiny. Jupiter, good. Who said that? Communication, teaching. 3rd house matters. I'm doing it. I'm fulfilling my destiny right now. I'm teaching what? Jupiterian things. Higher knowledge, wisdom, philosophy. Isn't that Jupiter? Okay, Jesus, Jesus, right? I'm a Sagittarian. I'm being who I am. I always have known when I'm doing this, I'm at my best. I know that. You know, I mean, that's what my purpose in life is to do. I just know it. But did I know it all my life? No. I was wild and crazy when I was young. I didn't care about anything, you know? I had no sense of direction. So Jupiters are often, that's the case with Jupiter anyway. Jupiter's usually wild and crazy in his youth, and then later on he settles down. But that's the whole point of this, is to find the ruler. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So I look at it and I say, where's it at in my chart? Oh, it's in the third house teaching. Oh, but it's in Pisces. Oh, your destiny was to go to prison, Pisces. Pisces rules prison, self-undoing sorrow, confinement, alcohol and drugs, all that stuff I did. It's all there. My destiny. To learn in prison and to teach eventually what I learned. To take the light of Jupiter and bring it to others through teaching. That's my destiny. Now how simple is that to read a chart? If that's all you did is read your ascendant ruler and then found the planet that ruled that. If you have a Leo rising, that means what? Your sun is your ruler, right? Wow. That's why we say Leo is always, you know, who was it? Edgar Cayce, back to him, the sleeping prophet. He used to say this, the sun is ever, no, how does he say it? Yeah, how do you do this? The will is always the ruler. The will, is Casey, the will is always the ruler. Well, Leos are the will. I will. Nothing stronger than a Leo, especially Leo rising. Because Leo rising gives a regalness. It gives a, you know, a kind of a kingliness or something. It gives a power if you have Leo rising. Now, the sun is the ruler of Leo, then where's it in the chart, you see? I mean, we have a sun that's Leo like that. It's everything he does, it's he accomplishes it, you know? He sets his will to it. He's undefeatable. Whether it's weightlifting in New York and topping the whole nation in weightlifting, or when he puts his will to something, I couldn't turn him over to spank him as a child. I couldn't get him to turn over. I couldn't fight him enough. He would fight me till I would quit. I couldn't put a hand on him. And if I did, I mean, today you whip my butt. No, I wouldn't want to mess with this kid. He's martial arts, but I brought my kids up, always brought them up to learn how to fight.
Well, you yourself were not very being humble. I mean, you were trained under Gracie in Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, this guy is...
Yeah, well, I believe you should be able to say no and mean it. You know, a lot of people in prison particularly never knew how to do that. You know what I mean? They turn the cheek, they're going to turn a different cheek. You know, so, you know, you better learn how to say no and mean it. That's how it works in there. So, you know, I came up the rough way, you know, and so, but that's like I said earlier about the Irish blessing. Don't give me that one for my kids. I don't want them to be slouches and weaklings. I want them to be strong. Okay? So anyway, so that's how the ascendant is important in your chart. It's most important. Now, the question you gave me, Linda, was you said, you asked me, right? You said there's ascendant aspects. If there's good aspects of ascendant, it's good. If, in other words, if your sun, let's just assume that this is 25, let's say in my chart. For example, let's say I had Saturn, which I do, at 25 Aries. That's perfect trine, 120 degree aspect to that. Okay? What does that represent? It represents something good in my character of potentially being very disciplined when I need to be. Okay? I'm very strong physically, and that comes, a lot of it comes from Saturn energy coming to my ascendant. I've always had a great strength physically. Not that I'm that big, but not anymore. But when I was young, nobody could beat me in arm wrestling. I mean, I've been in Mexico and winning drinks when I was young with arm wrestling until somebody ripped all my tendons out because I wouldn't quit. And he was that strong, this guy, this Mexican guy. And finally, I heard snap, 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 and that arm never was as strong again after that incident. But I was always like that as my youth. I was very strong. So this comes from, a lot of that is from Saturn coming to my ascendant. Okay, and it comes to Venus as well, because I have Venus at 25 right here. So I'm talking about my chart, but why not? Because that's how you learn, right? Now, so when you're doing a chart, the ascendant and the ascendant ruler is key interpretation. I'm glad you brought me there because we talked about understanding where the sun is in your chart and how much will is there, or lack of will, or conflict of will if the sun's afflicted. We talked about that, remember? We said, let's look at the moon and find out what kind of souls the person has. How much conflict of soul. Okay, the subconscious, how much of the warring is going on in his subconscious, and what are the factors it's producing? If it's Saturn afflicting the moon, you know that there's great issues between the mother and father. Why do you know that? Saturn is the disciplinarian. It's the father, but it's a strict father. If it's afflicting the moon, it means that the child, the soul, the impressionable young child, as the moon, has been hurt somehow by Saturn. You see? Very often I find that people that have that aspect have been sexually abused as children. I see that very often with Saturn and Moon. Moon's the very formative years of their life. And it's very big impact. I was doing a party the other night, do you remember? And this gal sat down and I said, I saw abuse in her younger years. It wasn't as a child, as a teenager, very young teenager. And I said to her, I said, you know, something happened to you. And she says, you know, nobody ever, I don't talk about it, nobody ever does. But she said, we had a music teacher and he abused all of us sexually. And we were all too ashamed to tell. He's still teaching. And that's been 20 years ago, she said. But she says it's left such a deep scar on my being. And she's talking about her soul, because of her soul. I saw it in the chart, you know? And people say, well, how do you see that, Ron? How do you know? You know, the chart talks to me. It'll talk to you as you start learning the language. You see that? So, anyway, any other questions about your charts?
The Midhaven, the same goes for that?
What's that now?
The Midhaven? The Midhaven.
The midheaven is much more the career house. Yeah, and like you have Mars on the midheaven when you were born. Your career, or your probably profession may be ultimately to teach martial arts. You may not, you're the student now, but you could be the teacher. You know, because that career house has got Mars right up there. You're born with powerful Mars. You have a great amount of energy. Anything to do with physical, dancing, yoga, anything to do with aggression, martial things, you'll always do well at. You could teach the same.
It says that I have Mercury conjunct the ascendant, so.
It's a teacher too, isn't it? Right? Very good. So, you know, so we're dealing with energies. We're dealing with charts that have many messages in it. You start pulling them out, and the chart will start talking to you. After you do this for a while, you know that. You see things. You say, where did that come from? People sometimes say to me, "Where did you see that?" I said, "I'm not sure." You know what I mean? Because I'm pulling out so much information in at once, and it's all kind of assimilating, and then it gels up and it comes out as a meaning. You know, it's like, whoa, where'd you get that, Ron? You know. Like the chart I did for a guy, he had Mars in the 4th house conjunct the moon. And I said, something happened when you were born. Something serious happened when you were born that endangered your life. Did I tell you this story? And his mother was born, he was born by cesarean. And the doctor, when he cut the mother, I don't know, they cut it this way, I don't know what they did. But anyway, when they did
Back
this.
then they cut it this way, a long time ago.
Did they? So when they cut her open to take the baby out, he sliced across his face. And there was a slight scar. I never paid it. It wasn't obvious as a grown man, but it had been there all his life. But that's Mars with the moon in the 4th house of the mother, you know. And so why did I get that particular interpretation? You see what I mean? When I see it, then there's another part of me that just knows. You know,
Intuition plays a big part, right?
Yeah, there's so much here. You know, the divide between, right now you're going to be mechanistic. You're going to be taking things apart and looking at them and trying to interpret them. Eventually it starts flowing together and then you become prophetic. And I promise you, if you'll spend your time doing this, doors will open up and you'll start seeing more and more, and eventually you'll start teaching it. You know, she has her first class? No, it's not your first. Is it your first class?
First time teaching?
Astrology though?
No.
It's not your first astrology class?
No.
Okay. So she put together what, 13, 14 students?
14.
Fantastic, just this last week. So here's the thing, that's the best way to learn. You gotta be on your feet, figuratively and truly, when you're teaching. Because that's gonna force you to grow and learn. All right. Is there anything else, are we about there? I think we are. It's, yeah, it's 6 o'clock. If you have questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So do you remember I told you a story about the girl, the beautiful girl? I was telling her how beautiful she was, and she was young, 17 years old, and I'm out to dinner with her, and it was honestly a good relationship. But I remember telling her how beautiful she was. She kept looking me square in the eye every time I said that, and said, "Thank you, thank you." I mean, you know, I've never seen any woman take praise that graciously. I said to her, I said, "Kathy," I said, "you know," I said, "how is it you can take this praise so wonderfully?" I said, "You know, most people get embarrassed and flushed, and you know." She says, "It's really easy, Ron." She says, "I know where beauty and grace come from, and I just offer it up. It doesn't get caught in her ego." So she'd look me square in the eye every time. She said, "Thank you, thank you." I thought that was such a beautiful lesson for me about accepting praise and thanksgiving. You know, some people, "Oh, don't give me this. I don't want you." You don't allow God's flow. You understand that? Let those that want to give, because that's God flowing through them. You understand that?
Unless it's a line.
Unless it's what?
A line.
A line, yeah. If it's a gimmick, yeah. I'll give you this if you buy my car. But yeah. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's been a fun 5 weeks for me. I just love you all, and I thank you so much for being part of it.
Thank you.
And I hope we stay in touch. Miles and years ahead. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay around if you'd like, and we can socialize and chat. Maybe eat some more food, have more pie, cappuccino.
Well, good luck, Luigi.
Good idea.